1 o'clock hour, one more hour with you. Allen Stiles Show, Sactown Sports. And as promised, we are joined by the one, the only Dieter Kurtenbach, KNBR host, Bay Area Sports HQ columnist, and a good friend of mine. Dieter,
yes,
you know, it seems like just yesterday it was me and you on the beach in Alameda, and now I'm out here, and I miss you, but thank you so much for joining.
I miss you too, Alan. I can't believe you promised this to people. That was a mistake. We drove them all away. Had I come in under the guise of not coming, we would have had a chance, but instead here we are.
That's true. That's true. So let's start here, Dieter. True or false, the Kings ruined the Warriors dynasty? Can you just answer that question?
You can have it. I mean, I'm not going to say that last year's, from the Warriors' perspective, embarrassment of a play-in tournament game ruined the dynasty. I think that it obviously had a lot of stuff happening before that game that manifested in full in that game. But the Warriors dynasty, however you want to say it, lasted. It's dead. It's over. And I don't know if the Sacramento Kings ended it, but they certainly put an exclamation point at the ending. Like, this is not the same operation. And it is interesting watching these two teams head in completely different directions as of late, considering that the Warriors probably could have lied to themselves a little bit and said, well, you know, the Kings are struggling and the Lakers are struggling and the Clippers are probably over their skis a bit. At least we're, toe-to-toe with these California teams, and now they're just getting their butts kicked by all three of them. And it really highlights how down bad they are.
Talking to Dieter Kurtenbach, KNBR host, Bay Area Sports HQ columnist. Are you surprised at all at how this turned out for the Warriors, specifically this season?
No. The only surprise would have been that they got out of the gates hot and started 12-3, and that a lot of the moves that they made to quote unquote replace Klay Thompson, taking all of that salary and turning it into Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton, like that, it was working early, and that strength in numbers seemed to have a little bit of strength. That was the surprise. I was, not to toot my own horn here, I'm certainly not alone in this camp. I was banging the drum that they needed a number two, and that this was the same issue that they had the year prior. They didn't take care of it after they got knocked out by the Lakers in the semifinals 2 years ago, after beating the Kings in 7, it should be noted. And then they never got that number two. They just said, no, we'll run it back. Yeah. And then they said, oh, we'll deal with it at the trade deadline. And they never dealt with it at the trade deadline. Oh, we'll deal with it in the offseason. They didn't deal with this past offseason. And they said, oh, we'll deal with it at this trade deadline. And I'm looking, and it doesn't seem like they're going to deal with it at the trade deadline. They didn't deal with their number one issue. And it's not a new issue. So how can anyone be surprised that they're wholly mediocre at this juncture?
Yeah, and I know Marcus Thompson was on your station, KNBR, and kind of having the conversation about we're okay with this season not being it if we take a swing next season. And Dieter, I know you're still out there in the Bay. So what I'm hearing, and I don't know if you've heard this too, is they're going to do this the right way, but this thing doesn't turn around. And I don't even know what turnaround looks like. Long story short, I'm hearing we're not too far away from Steph and Draymond being shut down in some capacity, because the fluid in Steph's knee, the back with Draymond. Is that a thing that you're hearing? How far away are we from, you know what? Yeah, Steph's knee's kind of acting up and Draymond's back. It ain't great, so we're just going to shut it down.
We're far away from that point, but it's a conversation that's happening. So how far can you really be? If they were further away from the 5th seed, then there would be a real conversation. If they weren't still somehow a play-in tournament team, or at least right there in the vicinity, there'd be a different conversation. But the way that the NBA rewards mediocrity, it's pretty clear that there's not a lot of incentive for them to try much harder or really give it all up. And it wouldn't shock me at all if their one move at the trade deadline was to move off some money from a non-rotation player to slide under some tax line. I'm not going to pretend to do the accounting here. That's why I hire an accountant. But I'll talk to my guy, and we'll see what we got with the Warriors regardless. It wouldn't shock me if they decided, instead of doing the thing that they should have done now for the last year and a half, 2 years, which is bring in somebody who can hold up the offense when Steph's off the floor. Noting that injury that you just acknowledged, like Steph doesn't even play in most back-to-backs, right? He's kind of on the Joel Embiid plan, not to the full extreme, but like he doesn't do that anymore, as you would expect. He's turning 37 in a couple of weeks. So you're losing those games, just guaranteed. You stand no chance of winning. I think they've won one of them, but that was a fluke. So you don't win those games, and then you split the other games that you play when he does play. I'm running the math in my head. That seems like you're going to lose more than you're going to win. Just simple. I got a D in trigonometry in high school, so don't ask me about this. But like, I'm no math whiz. That doesn't seem great for making the playoffs, the earnest playoffs, and not this play-in tournament again. And so yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if their move, instead of doing the thing which they should have done, which is go and get somebody who can hold the team up a little bit, instead of hoping that Andrew Wiggins has a game or Jonathan Kuminga has a game or Buddy Hield has a game, all of which they never seem to have when you need it. Yeah. Instead of that, they'll say, actually, let's pare it down a little bit, because why are we paying so much for a team that's pretty cruddy?
I'm worried, Dieter. I'm worried about the Buddy Hield revenge game. I know he's a couple of teams removed, but
you shouldn't be.
Being a part of this rivalry, I think Buddy might try to do something. He's going to shoot it. We know he's going to shoot it. Whether it goes in or not is the question. Dieter Kurtenbach, KNBR host and Bay Area Sports HQ columnist. Dieter, what did you think? I'm curious your thoughts on the whole we're not going to put the Oregon a bad spot thing, and then they walked it back, and kind of out of character for Steph, coming at Twitter fingers and people that are actually Warriors fans for the most part that were trying to defend Steph. What happened there?
Well, the easy answer is that Draymond gave a very good quote to Vinny Goodwill of Yahoo Sports, saying that, hey, bad teams make big, bold, brash decisions. I'm paraphrasing here. And we're not that, right? So he stood up for his guys, but it very much came across as, hey, we're not desperate. We're going to figure this out. And this is the new, softer Draymond, right? And then, of course, that's a very interesting quote. So you take it to Steve, you take it to Steph, you take it to anybody who has some sway, and then they have to have their say on the matter. And I get where they're coming from, right? Like, trading 5 first-round picks for DeMar DeRozan or Jimmy Butler or whomever, Zach LaVine, that's stupid. Like, of course you're not doing that. The problem is no one has suggested that at all. Like, that's not reality of the situation. There is no desperate move to be made. There is no massive 5 draft pick Kevin Durant player that you can go get. I would love to hear about it, because I would be interested in making that trade if I were the Warriors. But they're sort of poo-pooing it on the most extreme. It's almost a straw man argument. And then they win a game, and Steph is out here. They're feeling themselves a little bit. Hey, we beat the Timberwolves, which, I think 20 other teams have done this year.
Well, it feels like they play the Timberwolves every week, by the way.
Yeah, they're last year's Oklahoma City. The Warriors played it roughly 42 times last year. And now this year they're going to play Minnesota roughly 42 times. Thank you to the Emirates NBA Cup for that. But I got to get that sponsor name in, unless they send somebody out for me. Regardless, it's just the nature of they have nothing to present on the basketball court, so they can only talk about things that are happening off the court, which is also nothing. So we're just people talk about the media making stuff up all the time. Guilty as charged on this one, because otherwise we have to talk about the way they play basketball or the lack of any movement behind the scenes on how to make this basketball team better. So we're just coming up with ideas. Here's an idea. Mike Dunleavy, you don't seem to have any ideas, so here's one for free. Or, buy a subscription and we'll give you a free trade idea. Call up the Suns. I mean, I feel like I'm doing more work trying to figure out how to make the Warriors better than the Warriors. And it seems like when I text people around the league that, in fact, I am doing more work in trying to make the Warriors better than the actual Warriors, because they're like, oh, that's a good idea. I wish someone would have brought that to my boss. And it's like, should I be? Obviously, I should not be running the Warriors, but this is where we're at, where it just feels there's a stasis of mediocrity that exists and permeates. And this, when you compare it to the ultra aggressive, the championship mentality, it's just antithetical to what we expected from the Warriors organization, what we expect from Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr. And for them to be so accepting of this, whatever it is unbecoming. And it's something worth noting. So I found it interesting that, they keep flip-flopping back and forth on what it is. Oh, we're not comfortable being, bad or mediocre, but we're also not going to do anything. And it's like, well, This is the same issue that ownership has. There's no incentive for them to make a big move because no big move is going to make them a true championship contender. We know that. But there's also no incentive to drop down because, they can do anything. They're still going to have the building full. So what's their business incentive? And it keeps coming back to this. The cut and short of it, Alan, I'm rambling on. The cut and short of it is simple. The Warriors ownership and everyone in the front office got so high on their own supply. They kept feeling like they were the smartest guys in the room for so long, and they might have been.
Light years ahead.
They stopped reading the room. They got complacent. They stopped being aggressive. This is the same team that you remember. I mean, you might have even been one of them, Alan. When 2016's offseason comes around and Kevin Durant's available to every team in the NBA because LeBron James and Chris Paul wanted their money. When that happened, there were a lot of people, and there was a salience to this argument that said you can't break up this Warriors team. You can't get rid of Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut because there's so much good chemistry. You just won 73 regular season games. You were one game away from winning a title. You can't trade those guys to go get Kevin Durant. And the Warriors said, watch us. And it turned out to be the right move. They always tried to stay light years ahead, a step ahead, whatever you want to call it. They were aggressive. They were hungry. I don't see that hunger, and I certainly don't see that aggression anymore. And you have to blame the man on top. You have to blame Joe Lacob, who talks a big game, but his team is not backing it up in the front office or certainly on the court.
Yeah, the weird thing, Dieter, and we're going to get you out of here because I know are you coming up tonight? Am I going to see you tonight?
Hell no, brother.
Okay. All right.
They pay me to watch it, and you couldn't pay me to also drive to Sacramento and watch it.
That's also true. I think the weird thing is with what the Warriors are saying is nobody's saying you have to get rid of Kuminga, Podziemski, future draft picks, Andrew Wiggins. Just choose. And I feel like them being so broad and saying we don't know, kind of like what you're saying, we don't want to blow this thing up. Well, nobody is saying that everything has to go, right? But if you make everything untouchable, then you're not doing anything at all.
The funniest thing to me is they keep bringing up this future. They're like, oh, we don't want to jeopardize the future. And I'm looking around now, what future are they talking about? Oh, Jonathan Kuminga is your number one. Congrats. You're going to win 20 games a year. Like, Jonathan Kuminga is the perfect best player on a bad team. That is exactly, just like Jordan Poole, the best player on a bad team, someone who's too into themselves to play good team basketball. And there's a lot of those guys out there. There's a lot of bad teams out there. So, and sometimes they get the insulation, but the Warriors wouldn't have that for Kuminga. So I have no problem getting rid of him, but that's not my call, right? They got algorithms, I'm told, that say that Jonathan Kuminga is going to turn into Pascal Siakam or something. I'm waiting and seeing. It is incredible to watch this team just wither away. I know all dynasties have to die, but I thought they'd go down swinging. And frankly, Sacramento is a fascinating juxtaposition because we all agree Mike Brown's a good coach. He just won Coach of the Year, but something was rotten in the state of Denmark, and they decided that to do what every team in the history of the NBA when facing a circumstance like that is done, which is just change the head coach, right? And I don't know if Doug Christie's a good head coach or not, but I can tell you they've won 9 of their last 10, and Keon Ellis, who is unquestionably an important glue player for this team and someone who it makes all the logical sense in the world to share the backcourt with Fox because he brings the defense and then Fox can bring the offense, and there's a pairing there that makes sense. Plus he gives you something in the corner. Like, now he's playing more and you can see his impact on the floor. Like, you can see just moves. You can see them shaking things up. Sometimes that's all you need in the NBA. Maybe the Warriors need more than that, but they're never going to trade Steph. They're never going to trade Draymond, and they're never going to fire Steve Kerr. And I'm not advocating that they do any of the three, but if those three are off the table, then you got to do something else. Yeah. And they just refuse to do it. And ultimately they're going to get, they're going to get what they deserve, which is maybe the 10 seed again. Except we're all going to feel way worse about it this time around, and they'll probably get their butts kicked by the Suns or someone who's actually trying. And then,
well, hopefully it won't be. Hopefully it won't be the Kings. DeMar, he says he doesn't want the play-in. We don't want the play-in out here, Dieter, but we do want
Bigger
you to
and
come
brighter
back.
things, my friend.
That's right. Dieter Kurtenbach, thank you so much for joining us, man. Next time I'm in the Bay, or next time you're in Sac, we got to link up. KNBR host, Bay Area Sports HQ columnist. Thank you so much, Dieter. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, Al.
Warriors Kings preview. We continue on. It's about that time. Allen Stiles Show, Sactown Sports.
All guests and callers join us from the Folsom Lake Honda